Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I wanted to give you a short update of how my in-bed worm towers are doing. So I made worm towers using odd yogurt containers. This was like a 1 liter container, and in the 1 liter container I put holes, and because I noticed that I had worms in my beds, in my containers, in my grow bags, I decided why not try and do worm towers in all my grow bags, and this is the result. As you can see, I have a lot of worms. And I must tell you that I did not buy any worms. I have never bought any worms, but I use worm castings. I used to use worm castings in my containers, and when you buy worm castings from a local farmer or from somewhere online, you usually get worm eggs in there. And if they're really fresh, then you get a lot of worm eggs. And I was lucky enough that from the worm castings that I've been using, I got worms. And so far, I have had good results. So after checking my worm containers, I usually make sure that I close the lid tightly to avoid ants and other things getting in there. This is how the plants are doing. As you can see, the plants are doing wonderfully. I have beautiful tomato plants and I'm very satisfied. This is another container where I have some ground cherries growing, and the ground cherries are massive. As you can see from here, most of the food has been eaten. I decided to try doing worm towers in grow bags because, as you know, containers are very difficult to maintain. You have to water them constantly, you have to feed them constantly. And I was thinking, why not feed the worms in my grow bags? And if I feed the worms and the worms are happy, my plants are also going to be happy. The microbial life that the worms bring to the grow bags is amazing, and the plants have been doing wonderfully. I usually feed uh, the worms once every 2 weeks. I usually check how they're doing. If they have enough food, I leave it. I feed them fruit scraps. I add some cardboard in there, and so far the worms have been doing wonderfully. The microbial life that worms bring to your garden um, is amazing. I think anyone who has an opportunity of doing this should do this, and I'm very happy that I decided to try this, and my plants have been doing amazing. So I will show you some other containers. This is another container where I have an in-bed worm tower. This has more food in it, and as you can see, the worms are doing amazing. I actually threw some peas in there, some odd peas, and as you can see, some of them are actually growing. Unfortunately, it is too hot for peas. I know if I grow them, if I transplant them, I don't think they will survive the heat. It is just too much heat at the moment in Germany. We are having temperatures that are above 30 degrees. Today was like 34 degrees. And this is another container where I have my climbing zucchinis growing, my zucchetta, and this is almost empty. And as you can see, I have roots. Plants are actually sending their roots into the pot and are directly benefiting from the nutrients that are coming from the teas that are being produced by the food scraps that I'm putting in there. There are roots in there. I was thinking this is going to happen, and it did happen. And the plant that has been benefiting from this has been doing amazing. This is a zucchetta. I have been harvesting from it, and I'm very happy with how it is growing. I'll show you in a little bit how the plant is looking. But like I told you, I usually put in food scraps. I put in some cardboard. Worms love cardboards, and I try as much as possible not to overfeed the worms, because when you overfeed, sometimes you can actually burn the roots of the plant, and that would not be ideal, because the plants, as you can see, are sending their roots into the worm tower. So I try as much as possible to put a lot of carton, or to put a lot of cardboard in there, and this is how the plant is doing. As you can see, it's doing amazing. This sucheta has huge leaves, as you can see, and I'm very happy with the progress. So this is how I did my do-it-yourself project, worm tower um, project, and I thought of sharing with you how I actually did the worm tower. I have here a 1 liter yogurt container that I'm trying to put holes in. If you have a drill, use a drill. The first 3 to 4 centimeters of the container, I don't put in any holes, because I am trying as much as possible to avoid things like ants getting there or flies getting there and laying their eggs in there. So the first few centimeters, I try as much as possible to avoid putting holes, and I concentrate at the bottom, putting a lot of holes, and on the last half of the container. If you have a drill, please use a drill. A drill is better for putting holes than what I have here. I know it is not the best thing to use to put holes in a container, but I have no other option since I don't have a drill. So I try to put as many holes as I can. Another option would be to use a knife. I decided against using a knife, because I know that if you use a knife, then the holes will have somewhat sharp edges, and you don't want to hurt the worms or as they're going in and out of the container. So for me, the only other option was to use a soldering gun, and I know using a soldering gun is not the best option. Like I said, it's not good for the environment, but it's the best option for me at this moment. You have to make a lot of holes in the container so that the worms access have more access to the food scraps that you'll be putting in the container. I put more holes at the bottom because I know that worms love moving from the bottom, but of course even from the sides they will go into the container. Make as many holes as you can in the container, and so I think that should be about enough. What I do is I look on the sides as well, and if I feel that I can put more holes, I put more holes on the sides. The benefit, another benefit of doing your own in-bed worm tower is that you have less need to use fertilizers in your containers. You know, you need a lot of uh, fertilizer for your container plants, but when you have worms producing worm tea directly in your containers, then you have less use for buying fertilizer for your container plants. This has been a huge benefit for me, because I know that my plants always have nutrients available in the containers for them, and they have been doing wonderfully. This is the first year that I've tried using in-bed worm containers, and when you're done putting holes in your container, you simply bury it. You bury it up to a certain point, usually before um after the holes, I bury it a little bit deeper and only leave the tip of the container above the ground. where the lid comes. And these are the plants that have been benefiting from the inbuilt worm tower. The plants are doing wonderfully. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you will also try this in bed do it yourself worm tower, and I hope that you have success growing, happy growing, and thanks for watching once again. Bye.